Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar about the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, or ILRC, to hopefully learn a little bit more about how we can support you all in the work that you do, working with immigrants and their families. My name is Ariel Brown, pronouns she, her. I'm a senior staff attorney here at the ILRC, and a lot of what I do is actually sort of our core legal TA and capacity building work that we're funded by the State Bar to provide as a support center. So I write a lot of the practice advisories and manuals that we offer, answer the AOD questions that come in through our legal consultation service, and then conduct a lot of trainings. So, many of the offerings that I'm going to talk about today. Also, just as background, before joining the ILRC, I directly represented immigrant clients for several years. So I really try to use that experience to, inform the resources that we put out for all of you who are in the field, directly assisting immigrants and their families. I also just wanted to note that, we're not offering CLE for this webinar, and we should be done in less than 30 minutes. I just really want to go over the different services that we offer, how to access them, and then answer any questions that you all may have. So we can go on to the next slide. So about the ILRC, for over 40 years, we have impacted the field of immigration law with a three-pronged approach by engaging in capacity building, policy advocacy, and civic engagement. We have a staff of about 60 people spread through a couple of different offices in California, including the Central Valley, and then our sort of headquarters in San Francisco. And then we also have a couple of offices in Texas and also DC. We focus on teaching, interpreting, and changing the law to empower legal practitioners. Okay, next slide. So this is our website, ilrc.org. I thought maybe the best way to describe some of our services and how to access them might be through our website, even though we also send out regular updates when new resources are released. And we don't expect you to regularly browse our website looking for what's new. But we also have a lot more that's available beyond just the new resources that we send out announcements about. So I thought it might be worth looking at some of maybe the lesser known resources and areas of our work. For instance, even though we update roughly 5 of our manuals every year, and you all should be getting notifications when these new manuals come out, we actually have over 20 different titles, and we update them all on a regular basis. So there's actually a much deeper library at your disposal than you may realize. So going to the next slide. So then digging into our what we do tab, I'll discuss briefly the different areas of our work listed on this drop-down tab, but I also wanted to highlight on the left what's probably most pertinent for all of you. So we provide legal trainings in the form of webinars and also in-person trainings. We provide legal technical assistance through our case-specific attorney of the day legal consultation service, and then we also do a lot of case rounds. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then we provide advocacy support in the form of various coalitions and collaboratives that we often anchor, support, and participate in through legislative advocacy, trying to help pass laws in California that would help immigrants and prevent laws that would be harmful to immigrants. And then we also do administrative advocacy, reaching out to various immigration agencies, especially U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, to try to get them to change their policies or clarify issues. So then just going through the list that appears on the right from our website, which is maybe a little bit more broad than the areas that you all might be most interested in, but just to talk about some of the other things that we do. So as I mentioned, we engage in policy and advocacy throughout the U.S. We have a particular focus on local and state policy work in California, as well as policy advocacy at the federal level. And then we also do some advocacy in Texas. Our policy and advocacy efforts are guided by 3 main pillars. One is dismantling the arrest to deportation pipeline and disrupting racial disparities in the immigration and criminal legal systems. 2, expanding immigration law to improve protections from deportation and access to immigration relief. And then 3, preserving and expanding access to legal services and opportunities for citizens and non-citizens to engage in the political process. And so if you were to navigate to our policy advocacy page there, you could find resources like a legislative advocacy toolkit that we recently released. We also have a critical action needed report with policy asks for the Biden administration before his administration ends, and other resources. And then the next one on that drop down, the community resources, we'll actually talk about that more in a minute. Same with practice advisories. And then I also just wanted to highlight our legal listservs. So you can subscribe to various listservs that the ILRC hosts, and there are actually a bunch of them. So bear with me as I sort of run through the list really quickly. But we have a listserv for people filing post-conviction relief motions to exchange best practices, model materials, and strategize about cases, and that's called the Cal PC 1473.7 list. We also have a DACA experts list to discuss DACA issues, share resources. There's an immigration consequences of delinquency list that's for lawyers or advocates working in the immigrant or youth justice systems. We have an N400 and 600 list for people who are working on naturalization, acquisition, derivation, and other citizenship issues. We also have an SIJS task force listserv that's for practitioners and nonprofit organizations in Northern California, focusing on special immigrant juvenile status. We also have a Ready Bay Area list that's sort of for Bay Area nonprofits, providing legal services, education, outreach, and other services to the immigrant community in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. We have a TPS list, which is a forum for discussion and exchange about TPS practices and issues. And then we have a new national post-conviction relief list. So if you're not on one of these and you're interested in joining, you can visit that legal listservs page to sign up. I also wanted to highlight quickly our red cards, which many of you might have seen these before. They're like small red cards about the size of a library card or a credit card that you can hand out to your clients to keep in their wallet. And it basically describes the constitutional rights that all of us have in the United States, regardless of immigration status. And nonprofits serving immigrants can order these for free. So if you go to that red cards page on our website there, you can request them. And we actually have them in 14 different languages. So we have Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Haitian Creole, Hmong, Korean, Punjabi, Russian, Spanish, Tagalog, Tigrinya, Ukrainian, and Vietnamese. And then the last thing under this What We Do tab about technical assistance, I'm also going to talk about a little later in the presentation. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so looking more closely at some of our written resources, we have downloadable community resources like fact sheets, explainers, know your rights materials, where the audience is the immigrant community directly. So you can hand out these resources to your clients, but they can also be helpful to you if you want sort of like a quick Cliff Notes explanation of an immigration legal topic. These can be a helpful starting point. These are all available for free on our website. And then if we go to the next slide, here's a sampling of some of our community resources, on topics ranging from what non-citizen protesters need to know when exercising their constitutional right to free speech and lawful assembly. We have another one about understanding how marijuana legalization at the state level can continue to pose really serious pitfalls for immigrants. We also have a popular safe to use list that talks about public benefits that immigrants can use without having to worry about public charge. So some of these resources are available in multiple languages, most commonly Spanish in addition to English. And then we have a few like some of our public charge resources or our naturalization red flags checklist and outreach flyer that are also available in Chinese. Okay, next slide. So then our practice advisories are our longer written resources, which are more geared towards practitioners. Sometimes these cover, important updates in case law or policy. Others are more like introductory guides or primers to various immigration law subtopics, like the affidavit of support or basic requirements to adjust through family. So they are also sort of like bite-sized content from our much more lengthy manuals. So I think as I was mentioning, all of you who work at state bar funded IOLTA organizations should get emails about our newly released practice advisories. But if there's a specific topic that you're interested in, you can also check out this page to see what we have, since we publish about 30 practice advisories a year. So we have a lot. And like our community resources, these are all available for free as well. And then another way to find these resources is if you look under the relevant areas of expertise tab, which you can see at the top there, and we're going to look at that in a moment. So for instance, if you were to navigate to the asylum area of expertise, you would find our practice advisories on asylum issues, as well as community resources and other resources that have been collected based on topic rather than resource type. Okay, next slide. If we can move to the next slide. Thanks. So here's a sampling of some of our practice advisories. As I said, we have a ton. And then you can see this yellow banner text. That's what the email looks like that announces the newly released practice advisories. And, as I mentioned, you all should be receiving these emails. And if you don't, you might want to ask your colleagues who gets these emails and if they can forward them to you. You can also email me. I'll put my email in the chat at the end of the presentation, and I can pass your email along to our education team. And that way you can get these emails directly. And then, as I mentioned, to browse other advisories we have based on a specific topic, you can either look under the practice advisories tab or the areas of expertise, and then look at the specific topic that you're interested in. I would also just add that, sometimes these advisories are informed by the questions that we see from you all in the field, or through our AOD. For instance, the one about inadmissibility for you non-immigrants. We get a lot of questions about, what happens if someone triggers a new ground of inadmissibility after they submit their U visa application, but before approval, or after approval, but before adjustment. We also get a lot of questions about, how travel might affect an application for naturalization. So we try to be really responsive with these advisories to what, are the common questions that we are seeing coming from all of you, and how we can sort of best respond and be a resource. Okay, next slide. So we also have an Attorney of the Day service, which is basically an opportunity to have case questions answered directly by attorneys at the ILRC. We take questions by email, but you can also request a phone consult if you want to when you submit your email inquiry. To submit a question, you just email aod@ilrc.org. We ask that you list your org affiliation if it's not in your signature line, just so that we can confirm you qualify for our services for free, since others have to pay for our AOD service, but it's free for our IOLTA-funded orgs like you all. Just to note, another way in which we offer sort of case-specific legal technical assistance is through regular case rounds for different collaboratives that involve IOLTA-funded direct service providers, such as the San Francisco Immigrant Legal Defense Collaborative, or SFLDC, or the San Mateo County Removal Defense Collaborative. So these case rounds can be helpful if you appreciate sort of group learning and also if you're a member of one of these collaboratives, but our AOD is also available for one-on-one consults and mentoring, whether you're working on your first VAWA case, or you got a tricky request for evidence in an adjustment case and you'd like help strategizing a response, or maybe you need help reviewing a prospective naturalization applicant's criminal record. These are just some examples of the types of questions that we get in our AOD. Okay, next slide. So this tab lists our substantive areas of expertise. It's really almost everything immigration law related except for employment-based visas. So all the sort of humanitarian forms of relief, U visa, T visa, VAWA, asylum, removal defense, family-based. We have sort of specialized expertise in crimes and sort of the crim space, also enforcement, looking at ICE and those enforcement priorities. We have DACA, public charge, a specific section just sort of specialized on immigrant youth, detention, temporary protected status. Yeah, so there's a lot there. Each topic has a specific page with practice advisories related to that topic and also other resources, right? Like fact sheets and community handouts, as I mentioned. So, another way to find these is, through the areas of expertise where you look at the topic that you're interested in. These same substantive legal issue areas are also reflected in sort of the content that's covered in our manuals, our trainings, and also our expertise in terms of the types of AOD questions that we can answer. Okay, next slide. So under our books and trainings tab, we list our publications. These are our manuals, seminars, which refers to our in-person trainings, our webinars, which are our online trainings, and then recordings for webinars that have already been offered. And so I'll talk about our manuals and webinars in a moment, but I just wanted to say, if you look at the seminars tab online, you probably won't see very much, just because we don't actually post many of our seminars publicly online since on our website, since most are only available to like a certain grant-funded group, like ILTA-funded organizations. So you're more likely to find out about in-person trainings through targeted emails notifying you of in-person trainings that you can attend. And then just in terms of the trainings that ILRC does, last year we did a total of 77 legal trainings that were attended by ILTA-funded orgs like you all, a mixture of online and in-person. Some were quite small, 20 people or less. Others were much larger. The most attendees that we had for a single training last year, and this included ILTA and non-ILTA attendees, was 464 people for a webinar on the proposed naturalization test redesign. Although we actually hit a new record last month, we had nearly 3,000 people attend a webinar that we had on the new parole in place process for spouses and stepchildren of U.S. citizens a couple weeks ago. Some of you or your colleagues may have attended this webinar. Okay, and then going on to the next slide. So ILRC has over 20 different manuals. ILTA-funded organizations have access to the 4 to 5 manuals that we update each year for free. And then our other manuals, you can purchase at the discounted nonprofit rate. But because we update all of our manuals every couple of years, so a single manual might be updated every 2 to 3 years as we sort of cycle through all of them. You can wait to get always the most up-to-date manuals for free. But if, the VAWA manual hasn't been updated quite as recently and you're interested in that, you could potentially purchase it rather than wait for when that update comes around, at which time you all could actually access it for free. So we send out a code for the free access for those select manuals each year. So another reminder, if you don't get ILTA emails from the ILRC, you should talk within your organization about who gets those and how to be in the loop. And then, like I said, you can also send me your email and I'll make sure that you get added to our list on our end so that you can get these emails directly. And then also just most of, I think, if not all of our manuals are also available as downloadable ebooks, as well as tangible print copies, if that's your preference. Next slide. So you all can access our webinars for free. This is another one where you need a code, though, because we do charge others for access to the webinars. And then also note that actually your free access is funded through a different grant that covers all California nonprofits, so not actually the state bar funding. So it's possible in the future that you might not have free access if you're just an ILTA funded organization, if this other funding goes away. But for now, all of our webinars are free for all of you. And just sort of flagging, so on your screen there, there's sort of 3 webinars that are coming up most quickly. We have next week one on parole and immigration law, which will touch on that new parole in place process that I talked about. as well as some other special parole programs like for Ukrainians and Afghans. And then we also have a webinar on fee waivers and reduced fees coming up, and then special immigrant juvenile green card applications through adjustment of status. Other upcoming webinars include screening for statutory bars to asylum, a webinar on T visas, adjustment of status, tips on completing the new N400 naturalization form, qualifying crimes for U visas. We have a webinar called Beyond the I-589, Work Permits, Derivatives, and What Comes Next. And then another webinar that's an update on the asylum and border rules. So I would encourage you to check out all of the webinars that we have planned, since we're just now starting our fall semester. So most of them are still in the future. But then if they're, as I mentioned, we also have recorded webinars for ones that were already offered. For instance, last spring, we had webinars on consequences of prior removal orders, prosecutorial discretion. We had one on alcohol, drugs, and youth. We had one on deferred action for immigrants involved in labor disputes, all about the permanent bar, etc. So you could also listen to those on demand. And all of our webinars are CLE trainings as well. And they always are 90 minutes. Okay, next slide. So then lastly, just to touch on our advocacy support, ILRC provides litigation support, usually in the form of submitting amicus or friend of the court briefs, also coordinating amicus efforts, helping with brief writing and trial prep. And all of this is usually on post-conviction relief issues. We also do some legislative advocacy, such as in recent years, co-sponsoring bills related to U visa law enforcement certifications, a California ID bill as sort of like the non-driving alternative to AB 60 driver's licenses. Also the Rep for All campaign that seeks to ensure legal representation for immigrants facing deportation in California, regardless of prior contact with the criminal legal system. And then we also do a lot of administrative advocacy through regulatory comments and comment campaigns, also just surfacing concerns and meeting with USCIS and policy changes, as well as working in local coalitions and collaboratives such as the ICE out of California coalition or the End SOJS Backlog Coalition. Okay, next slide. So that's it. And then if anyone has any questions, we have time for questions right now. And then I'll just put in the chat my email, since I was mentioning if you aren't getting the sort of targeted IOLTA emails from the ILRC that has like the codes to access the webinars and the manuals for free, let me know and I can add you to our list. And yeah, if anyone else has any other questions.
Thank you, Ariel, for presenting today. I'm going to go ahead and start our outro. If there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A function. And we also put in our email there if you have any questions afterwards. And we'll be uploading this webinar to the LAAC website within a week. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. This webinar was hosted by the Legal Aid Association of California, also known as LAAC. We are the membership organization for California's civil legal aid nonprofits. Our job is to advocate in the legislature, in the courts, and with the State Bar of California on behalf of the community of nonprofits that serve low-income Californians. In addition to our online and in-person trainings, LAAC provides coordination and advocacy for increased funding to support organizations like yours. Thank you.